I believed in love and commitment. For 3.5 years, Amanda and I built what I thought was an unshakable foundation. We had our dream house, shared countless memories, and planned our future together. Then came the receipt, the text messages, and finally seeing her with him. Instead of confrontation, I chose silence. I packed my life and disappeared without a trace. Now, after rebuilding myself in a new city for a year, she's found me. Before I tell you how my wife found me after I vanished from her life, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and hit subscribe if you've ever had to rebuild after betrayal. I met Amanda at my college friend's barbecue 4 years ago. She was laughing by the grill helping flip burgers, while telling a story that had everyone around her smiling. Her confidence and warmth drew me in immediately. We locked eyes across the yard, and by the end of the night we had exchanged numbers. Our relationship moved quickly after that. Weekly dates turned into daily calls, which evolved into practically living together within months. 6 months after we met, I proposed on a sunset hike to our favorite overlook. Amanda cried and said yes, without hesitation. We married in a small ceremony 2 months later with just close friends and family. Everyone said we were rushing, but when something feels so right, why wait? Our life together seemed perfect on the surface. We bought a charming 3-bedroom house in the suburbs, adopted a golden retriever named Cooper, and settled into domestic bliss. I worked as a marketing manager, while Amanda built her career as a pharmaceutical sales representative. Her job required occasional travel, which I never questioned. We were both ambitious and supportive of each other's goals. I poured everything into our marriage. I remembered birthdays, anniversaries, and random Tuesdays with small gifts. I listened to her work stories, cooked dinner when she was tired, and truly believed we were building something unbreakable. Looking back, there were warning signs I chose to ignore. Amanda became increasingly protective of her phone, always keeping it face down or taking calls in another room. When I would ask casual questions about her day, her answers became vague and redirected to questions about mine. As we approached our 3rd anniversary, the subtle changes became more noticeable. Amanda started working late more frequently, often coming home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers, which she explained away as samples from the department store she had visited during lunch. Her usual Thursday night yoga class somehow expanded to include weekends, yet the expected fitness results never materialized. The first real suspicion hit when I noticed unusual charges on our shared credit card statement. There were lunch bills for 2 at restaurants near her office, on days she told me she had eaten at her desk. Hotel parking charges appeared for nights. She was supposedly at conferences, but the hotels were local, not in the cities she claimed to be visiting. When I casually mentioned these discrepancies, Amanda became defensive, then quickly flipped to being unusually affectionate, distracting me with intimacy that had become rare in recent months. It was a pattern I would later recognize: question, defense, distraction, and my own willing denial. At a friend's dinner party, I noticed how our mutual friends seemed uncomfortable around me, exchanging glances when Amanda stepped away. James, who usually talked sports with me for hours, could barely maintain eye contact. His wife, Sarah, hugged me longer than usual. When we left with a sadness in her eyes, I couldn't understand at the time. Despite the mounting evidence, I dismissed my intuition repeatedly. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the stress of our demanding careers was creating distance that wasn't really there. I convinced myself that marriage had natural ebbs and flows, and this was just a temporary disconnect we would overcome. Then came the moment that shattered my illusions. While doing laundry one Sunday, I found a receipt in Amanda's jacket pocket from the Westlake Hotel downtown. The date corresponded with her supposed girls' night out with coworkers 3 days earlier. I stood frozen in our laundry room, receipt in hand, as my mind raced to find innocent explanations. Later that evening, while Amanda was showering, a text notification lit up her phone on the coffee table. I had never checked her messages before, but something pushed me to look this time. It was from Jake from work, and just the preview was enough. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you Tuesday. He still doesn't suspect anything." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The late nights, the changed passwords, the emotional distance, the hotel charges. Still, I needed absolute confirmation before making any decisions. The following Tuesday, I called in sick to work and followed Amanda during her lunch break. Instead of going to her office, she drove to an upscale restaurant downtown where she met a tall, well-dressed man. Through the window, I watched them greeting with a passionate kiss that spoke of established intimacy, not a new affair. My stomach clenched as 3 years of memories recontextualized themselves in my mind. How long had this been happening? Who else knew? Had she ever actually loved me? I sat in my car for hours, physically ill from the betrayal, unable to drive as my world collapsed around me. That night, and for many that followed, I lay awake beside her, feeling miles apart despite the inches between us. I analyzed every moment of our relationship, searching for the exact point where truth became deception. While Amanda slept soundly, I silently wept for the future we would never have. I visited a marriage counselor alone, not to save our marriage, but to process my feelings. After 2 sessions, the counselor asked what I wanted to do. Confrontation would lead to denial, then admission tears, promises to change, and months or years of suspicion and attempted rebuilding. I had seen friends go through this cycle, emerging bitter and broken despite efforts to reconcile. After careful consideration, I made my decision. There would be no dramatic confrontation, no pleading, no rage. I would simply leave and start again elsewhere. My dignity and mental health were worth more than a relationship built on lies. Once I decided to leave, I approached the exit with the same methodical care I had once devoted to building our life together. First came the financial separation. I opened a new bank account at a different institution and gradually transferred my savings there in amounts that wouldn't immediately raise suspicion. I removed my name from our joint credit cards after paying off my portion of the balances. I contacted a headhunter who had reached out months earlier about opportunities in Seattle. Within 2 weeks, I had 3 interviews and a job offer with a significant raise. I secured a modest 1-bedroom apartment in a high-rise downtown, paying the deposit from my new separate account. All communications went to a new email address Amanda knew nothing about. Each day I carefully selected personal items to take with me. Cufflinks from my grandfather. Books I treasured. Photos from before Amanda, which I slipped out of albums when she wasn't home. I left anything we had purchased together, or that held memories of our relationship. My goal wasn't to erase our past, but to carefully curate what parts of myself I would carry forward. The hardest decision was Cooper. I loved our golden retriever fiercely, but knowing Amanda's attachment to him and my upcoming apartment restrictions, I made the heartbreaking choice to leave him with her. I spent extra time with him those final weeks, taking long walks and memorizing the feeling of his fur against my hands. I wrote and rewrote my goodbye letter dozens of times. The final version was brief and dignified, explaining that I knew about her relationship with Jake, that I was leaving to start fresh, and that I wished her well despite the pain she had caused. No accusations, no bitterness, just truth and a clean break. I planned my departure for a weekend. Amanda had said she needed to attend a sales conference in Chicago, which I now knew would be spent with Jake at a local hotel. The Friday she left, I hugged her at the door as usual. "Have a good trip," I said, knowing it would be the last time I would ever embrace her. She kissed me quickly and hurried to her car, excited for a weekend that had nothing to do with sales or conferences. I watched her drive away, feeling strangely calm about what I was about to do. Once her car turned the corner, I sprang into action. The moving company arrived an hour later for the few boxes I had packed. My closest friend Ryan came to help with last-minute items and to provide moral support. By noon, everything I planned to take was loaded into my SUV. I walked through our home one final time, remembering the excitement of buying it. The dinner parties we had hosted the Christmas mornings by the fireplace. In the kitchen, I placed my wedding ring on the counter beside my letter. I took off my house key and left it there, 2 symbols of a life I was willingly walking away from. The drive to Seattle took 2 days. With each passing mile, I felt a mixture of grief and unexpected relief washing over me. I cried at random intervals, pulling over, when the tears made it impossible to see the road. But between those moments came growing periods of peace, as though my heart recognized this pain as necessary for future healing. My new apartment was sterile and impersonal when I arrived. but it was mine alone. No lies lived there, no betrayal tainted its spaces. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of Puget Sound and distant mountains, a physical manifestation of the new perspective I hoped to gain. Those first weeks were the hardest. I would wake up reaching for Amanda, before remembering she was no longer part of my life. I kept my phone off most of the time, avoiding the inevitable barrage of calls and messages that would come once she discovered my absence. When I finally activated a new number, I shared it only with my parents and Ryan, swearing them to secrecy about my whereabouts. I found a therapist specializing in betrayal trauma who helped me process the complex emotions of my situation. Dr. Winters never judged my decision to leave without confrontation. Instead, helping me understand that my choice was valid, and sometimes, the healthiest response to betrayal is simply to remove yourself from its source. I deliberately created new routines, nothing like my married life. Instead of running in the evenings as I had with Amanda, I joined a morning rowing club. I replaced our Sunday pancake tradition with exploring local farmers markets. I traded movie nights for photography classes, where I could focus on seeing the world through new lenses, both literally and figuratively. Through work and my photography club, I gradually built a circle of new friends who knew nothing of my past. They knew me only as Rodolfo, the marketing director who had moved from out of state for a career opportunity. This clean slate was refreshing, allowing me to rediscover parts of myself that had been subsumed in my marriage. An unexpected blessing came when I discovered my college friend Taylor lived in Seattle. We had lost touch years ago, but chance brought us together at a business networking event. Having someone who knew me before Amanda provided continuity while respecting my desire for a fresh start. Taylor introduced me to local hiking trails, the best coffee shops, and eventually to other friends who welcomed me without questions about my past. The healing wasn't linear. I cycled through stages of grief repeatedly. Some days the anger would overwhelm me and I would pound my frustration into a punching bag at the gym until my muscles screamed louder than my thoughts. Other days brought crushing depression where leaving my apartment seemed impossible. There were even moments of bargaining where I wondered if I should have stayed and fought for our marriage. 6 months after my departure, I felt ready to try dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee meetups and casual dinners. Each interaction helped me rebuild trust in small increments, though I remained cautious about sharing my full story. Most dates didn't progress beyond a second meeting, but each one represented progress in my journey back to openness. Physically, I transformed as well. The stress of living with deception had taken its toll, and now free from that constant anxiety, my body responded. Regular workouts, proper sleep and nutrition reshaped me. Friends from my past life might not have recognized the lean, more confident man I was becoming. At work, I channeled my energy into projects that had once intimidated me. My focus and dedication led to early recognition and added responsibilities. The professional growth provided further validation that leaving had been the right choice, opening doors that might have remained closed had I stayed in my previous life. As the 1-year mark of my departure approached, I realized I had accomplished something profound. I had built a life I genuinely enjoyed, formed authentic connections, and most importantly found peace with my decision. I no longer needed closure from Amanda. I had created it for myself. The first sign that my past was catching up came in the form of a blocked number calling repeatedly over several days. I let it go to voicemail each time, but the caller never left a message. Then came an email to my work address with the subject line, "Please read, Amanda." I deleted it without opening. I had already read everything I needed to when I saw her with Jake that day at the restaurant. Ryan called to warn me that Amanda had been asking about me, growing increasingly desperate to find out where I had gone. According to him, she and Jake had lasted barely 2 months after my departure. "She keeps saying she needs to explain that you didn't get the whole story," he told me. I thanked him for the warning but asked him to continue keeping my location private. I considered whether I should respond to her attempts at contact. Would hearing her explanation change anything? Would it provide additional closure? After reflection, I decided that engaging would only reopen wounds that were finally healing. My peace was too valuable to risk. Despite my precautions, Amanda proved more resourceful than I anticipated. On a Tuesday afternoon, my assistant buzzed to tell me someone was insisting on seeing me. She says her name is Amanda Peterson, and that she's your wife, he said, with obvious confusion, knowing I had never mentioned being married. The shock of hearing her name in my new space left me momentarily frozen. My heart raced and my palms instantly dampened with sweat. Taking a deep breath, I told my assistant I would come out to the lobby. I needed those few moments of walking down the hallway to compose myself. Amanda stood by the reception desk, thinner than I remembered and with darker hair. She wore a simple black dress and clutched a small purse with white knuckles. When she saw me, her carefully composed expression crumbled tears, immediately filling her eyes. "Rodolfo," she whispered, stepping toward me. I maintained my distance, acutely aware of my colleagues nearby. "We should talk somewhere else," I said, evenly surprised by the steadiness in my voice, despite the turmoil inside. "There's a coffee shop around the corner." We walked in silence to the cafe. I chose a table in a quiet corner, conscious of providing privacy for what would inevitably be an emotional conversation. Amanda sat across from me, her eyes never leaving my face, as though memorizing changes since she last saw me. "You look good," she said finally. "Healthy." "Thank you," I replied, not returning the compliment, though politeness urged me to. "How did you find me?" "It took months," she admitted. "You disappeared so completely. No social media, new phone number, new email. I hired a private investigator eventually. He traced you through your car registration when you renewed it here in Washington." I nodded, making a mental note to be more thorough if I ever needed to disappear again. Not that I anticipated needing those skills in the future. "You just left," she said, voice breaking. "One weekend away, and I came home to an empty closet and that letter. Do you know what that did to me?" "Probably something similar to what watching you kiss another man did to me," I replied calmly. Her eyes widened. "You knew. Before you left, you actually saw us. At Bellamy's downtown. You were wearing your red dress, the one I bought you for our anniversary. Jake kissed you as soon as you walked in." It wasn't hard to connect the dots with all the other evidence. Amanda covered her face with her hands. "I never meant for any of that to happen. Jake was just a colleague at first. We started working closely on a project and things evolved." I was confused, flattered by the attention. Our marriage had become so routine, and with him I felt excited again. "You could have talked to me. You could have suggested counseling. You could have asked for a divorce before starting another relationship. You had options that didn't involve betraying my trust." "I know," she whispered. "The affair with Jake only lasted 2 months after you left. He wasn't interested in anything serious, just the thrill of the forbidden. Once you were gone and I was available, he moved on to someone else." I felt no satisfaction at her pain, just a dull acknowledgement of the predictable outcome. "I tried dating other people," she continued. "But I kept comparing them to you. I started therapy to understand why I sabotaged something so good. My therapist helped me see patterns from my parents' relationship that I was unconsciously repeating." She reached across the table toward my hand, but I subtly shifted away. "I've changed, Rodolfo. I've done the work on myself. When I couldn't find you, I realized how much I took for granted. No one has ever loved me the way you did." Her eyes pleaded with mine as she laid out her proposal. "I want us to try again. I would move here to Seattle. We could start with counseling, take it slow. I know I need to rebuild your trust, and I'm prepared to do whatever that takes. We had something special before I ruined it. Don't you think that's worth fighting for?" As Amanda continued her emotional plea, tears streaming down her face in the busy coffee shop, I felt a strange sense of detachment. A year ago, these words might have been everything I wanted to hear. Now they seemed to be coming from a stranger talking about someone else's life. I studied her familiar face and realized something profound. The pain that had once consumed me had transformed into something unexpected: freedom. I no longer needed her approval, her love, or even her remorse to feel complete. "Amanda," I said gently when she finally paused, "I forgive you." Her expression brightened momentarily before I continued. "But I cannot go back. The man who loved you, who would have done anything to save our marriage, doesn't exist anymore. This past year changed me in ways I'm still discovering. You don't mean that she insisted. We can start fresh. I'll prove myself to you. The thing is, I explained, I already have started fresh. I have a life here that I've built carefully and deliberately. It's authentic in ways our marriage never was even before the affair. Because of her, Amanda asked sharply, "Are you with someone new?" "This isn't about another relationship," I said truthfully. "It's about the relationship I now have with myself. For the first time, I know my own worth isn't determined by someone else's ability to be faithful." The coffee shop had nearly emptied as our conversation stretched into its second hour. Amanda had cycled through tears, bargaining, and finally reluctant acceptance. "So, this is really it?" she asked quietly. "There's no chance for us. I think we both deserve more than trying to rebuild something that was broken long before I found out about Jake," I said kindly. "I truly do forgive you, Amanda. That forgiveness is as much for my peace as yours. But forgiveness doesn't mean returning to the source of our pain." She nodded slowly, gathering her composure. "I understand. I don't like it, but I understand." We stood to leave the awkwardness of a final goodbye hanging between us. Should we shake hands, hug, simply walk away? Amanda solved the dilemma by stepping forward and embracing me briefly. "Thank you for talking with me today. And for not hating me, even though you would be justified. Hatred would only keep me tied to the past," I replied. "I wish you healing and happiness, Amanda. Sincerely." I watched her walk away, her shoulders straight, despite the rejection. In that moment, I felt proud of us both for ending things with dignity rather than the drama that had characterized so many breakups I had witnessed among friends. Walking back to my apartment alone, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. There was sadness for what might have been had different choices been made. There was a tinge of loneliness that occasionally still surfaced in my new life. But overwhelmingly, there was certainty. I had made the right decision twice now, first in leaving, and again in not going back. The contrast between my life before and after the affair was stark. Before, I had lived in comfortable illusion, believing in a perfect love story while ignoring mounting evidence to the contrary. Now I embraced reality with all its imperfections and unpredictability. The pain had been excruciating, but the clarity it brought was invaluable. I recognized my own strength in ways I never had before. Walking away quietly had required more courage than staging a dramatic confrontation would have. Building a new life from scratch had revealed resources within myself I hadn't known existed. Even the pain that still occasionally surfaced served as a reminder of my resilience. Despite everything, I felt gratitude. Not for the betrayal itself, but for the growth it ultimately catalyzed. Without that painful rupture, I might have continued in a marriage that wasn't serving either of us authentically. I might never have discovered the joy of building a life aligned with my truest values. The most meaningful connections in my current life were built on foundations of transparency and mutual respect. My friendship with Taylor had deepened as I gradually shared more of my story. My relationship with colleagues was based on my actual contributions rather than a desire to be liked at all costs, a pattern I now recognized from my marriage. Most promising was my budding relationship with Sophia from my photography club. We had started as casual friends, spending hours discussing composition and lighting. Gradually, conversation turned to deeper topics. When I finally shared my abbreviated marriage story, her response was compassionate without being pitying. "That explains the depth I see in your photos," she had said. "There's a quality of having weathered something significant." Unlike my rushed relationship with Amanda, Sophia and I moved slowly, intentionally. We had been dating for 3 months, enjoying the simple pleasure of getting to know each other without expectations or timelines. She knew about my past, but didn't define me by it. With her, I was neither victim nor survivor, but simply Rodolfo, a man with a past that informed but didn't dictate his present. Through this journey, I had discovered profound lessons that no easier path could have taught me. I learned that self-respect must precede love for others. Without valuing myself enough to walk away from betrayal, I could never fully receive genuine love when it appeared. I understood now that closure doesn't come from explanations or apologies from those who hurt us. True closure emerges from within, from making meaning of our experiences, and choosing our path forward. Amanda's appearance didn't give me closure. It merely confirmed the closure I had already created for myself. Perhaps most significantly, I recognized that betrayal, painful as it is, can become a doorway to authentic living. Being forced to reconstruct my life allowed me to build it more intentionally the second time, discarding patterns and compromises that hadn't served me well. The quiet dignity of walking away proved more powerful than any confrontation could have been. By refusing to engage in drama, I maintained control over my own story. The narrative wasn't about being a victim, but about being the architect of my response to adversity. 6 months after Amanda's surprise visit, my life continued its upward trajectory. She had respected my wishes and maintained distance, which I appreciated. My relationship with Sophia deepened, gradually built on mutual respect and genuine connection rather than infatuation or convenience. My career advanced as I brought creativity and confidence to projects that once would have intimidated me. My photography had improved to the point where a small gallery agreed to feature some pieces in an upcoming showcase. Friends, both old and new, enriched my days with genuine connection. Some might view my story as one of loss of a marriage that failed and dreams that died. I see it differently. My journey taught me that some endings are actually perfect beginnings in disguise. The death of one dream made space for better ones I hadn't even known to imagine. Have you ever found that losing something you thought you wanted led you to what you truly needed? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming life's challenges. Remember, sometimes the quietest exits lead to the most powerful transformations. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to choose yourself when life demands difficult decisions.